right. So yeah, it would be great to have to understand a little bit more on like how you've been having a lot of conversations before this session, right? And so it would be
Yeah.
great to hear how you've been kind of like thinking about this title for the session, and like how do you envision 3D and collaboration evolving in the footwear industry?
It's a good start. I think it's a good start and segue. I think we were chatting, Richard and I were chatting before, and maybe it's kind of good for us to give you a little bit of our journey to try to explain how where it's
Yeah.
come and where we've come from, and then how we see things going forward. Um, yeah, Richard, do you want me, maybe I can take it away and just give you
Go
like
for it.
some background into that. Yeah, so like I'm actually coming from engineering background, so when I studied, 3D was like part of our world. We Everything was 3D. Even this is like 25 years ago. So everything we created, we were using 3D programs. If you needed to send something to machine shop, you got a 3D file. And then I joined Adidas in 2003 as an engineer in the innovation team using 3D simulation tools, so FEA, to try to engineer technology. At that stage, it was just components, but still I was using 3D. But then I decided that I wanted to learn about footwear and jump from being like just an engineer as actually to become more of a footwear expert. And I realized that the footwear process is like not 3D at all. Like they're just it kind of, so it felt like you're kind of going back a step, and the footwear industry was very sort of far behind other industries where we didn't really have digital twin. Obviously, in the bottom unit, we had that with the mold. Um, But then, 2007, Adidas were already doing a lot of work when I was there in 3D tools, RTT, early pushing into the space. And, they always had that vision that 3D was going to be the future of the creation process. And also, from a development point of view, a lot more about automation and kind of connecting people together, collaborating. Um, And then in 2017, I actually left. So I went to Anta, which is like the number three group in the world behind Nike and Adidas. And they had nothing, like zero. So, like, no plan, no real vision of how 3D could impact the industry, which is quite, just you took it for granted in the Adidas world that 3D was, they were on that journey and that was part of something they were going to invest in and to build the process. And so, yeah, I jumped to Revelbit in 2021. And I've just been working there to lead the sort of industry experts, so the subject matter experts with the software development, and leading like the development of the platform, which we're going to kind of share a little bit of how we've been using it. And I wanted to use some of my network and pull some of my good friends and experienced co-workers to try to help us develop the software. So I reached out to Richard to come on as an industry expert and help us in the development of the platform. So this is some of the background that kind of led us into what we're going to show you.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I've got 16 years experience now in footwear design. And as you mentioned, it's with an array of sports brands, lifestyle brands, and luxury fashion houses. And my first taste of 3D was actually at the university, where I did car design. So I actually had an experience with Alias and kind of more advanced 3D modeling software. So like being able to already take that into footwear at such an early period was great for me. And obviously I met Angus in 2011. We were both at Adidas. We never actually worked together at the time, but I think we just had the same type of mindset about moving things forward, and always having seeing the best in a process and how to make it better. And we were able to reconnect again, like as our careers kind of like waved and ducked around. And yeah, so I was able to start my own studio, and Angus approached me about collaborating with RevoBit, and I saw so many fantastic opportunities to, to integrate this process into my process, into my creative process. And I was actually able to be fortunate enough to kind of persuade some of the brands that I've been working with to use the platform to fantastic results, really. And the project we're going to share with you now is really like the kind of pinnacle case study for actually using this kind of digital process and actually seeing it come to life in reality. And seeing some of the things that we found were working really well, and some things that didn't, but we were able to kind of correct that course very early on, and and able to bring a product to market in a much faster time. So yeah.
Great. Well, looking forward to seeing that project. I'll leave you
Yeah.
guys to it. Once you're ready for me to come back, just let me know, and then
No
I'll
worries.
be making my way.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so basically, we started. Let's go back a little bit. So yeah, the project was for Lanvin. Lanvin is the oldest Parisian fashion house, and it was basically founded in 1889 by Jean Lanvin, the founder of the house. It was synonymous with innovation, and this is kind of really where everything started. We found that the 3D integration was perfect, would work perfectly with the idea of working with a fashion house with a founder that was originally connected with that. So this was kind of the start, which was all led around material innovation and the DNA of the house. This was about how we would blend those things together, tech and craft. Of course, the initial sketches, which were like equally as important as the 3D. The idea was to integrate the 3D into the traditional method of sketching, to basically blend those two mediums together to get the best results. So you can see where the design was at kind of this kind of second design review phase, and then as we move from here, we were able to take this into a 3D model via the sketches. So this is the first model we got back from those initial sketches, and as you can see, proportionally there were things that we really needed to work on. And what this did is actually it was allowed us to reduce the sample amount that we would normally do with the factories. So Angus, you can explain a little bit of the software.
Yeah, and I think just on that, you also had the issue that there was Chinese New Year, and they hadn't planned it into the calendar. It was so there was kind of challenges with getting physical samples. Yeah, so I mean, essentially, as Richard mentioned, the software is not actually a model. Like the modeling is provided as a service. So Richard provided like the tech pack. We transformed that into the model that you see, and really the tool enables the designer to apply materials, color, textures. We can show a little bit later in demo. Even things like the mold textures that you have, they can all be like applied onto the model here. Yeah, it's in the browser, quite simple, dragging and dropping. And I think, like as Richard mentioned, it was just the ability to see something in 3D much earlier in the process. And also like what we would call manufacturing grade 3D. So the modeling is actually coming from modelers that are actually working in the OEM factories that are building in all the tolerances for stitching allowance, for bonding allowance, etc. And then what you actually are getting is a 3D that's in theory like closer to production ready. But yeah, the big benefit here was just, as Richard pointed out, that you see instantly the proportions, the construction, and you need to make changes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this is why I paused it here a little bit, because this part of the software is really interesting, to give you an exploded view of each individual piece. That's actually how the shoe is constructed. Normally, a 3D model would be more aesthetical based, so almost like a shell. but this is really playing off each individual part. So there's even a way that the designer can kind of look into how the construction of the shoe can be improved. You know, are there too many parts? Is this constructed in the correct way? So this is a really interesting, just one of the amazing features in the program that allow you to improve the product. Yeah, so now we're moving into the chat function that basically you can actually communicate now with developers in the factory here.
I think this is the kind of key thing. If you talk, the topic of the talk today is about making it a team sport, making design a multiplayer sport. Here is that when we're working with Google Docs or anything like a Microsoft Doc now, we're all working on a cloud document, so we can share it together, we can communicate as a team, and it's actually very natural and easy, and it's much better than emailing a document around. But in the 3D world, there isn't as many tools that have that level of collaboration built in, and I think this is the key thing that we wanted to bring to the table as a unique proposition. So, how do we get developers in the factory to be able to interact with 3D? People that don't have a fancy computer with graphics cards, it's how do you access the web, interact with the model, communicate? So really things like the checking report that a factory might do, giving you feedback on what works, what doesn't work, what's your stitching allowance, what's not going to be manufacturable. Trying to be able to bring that together and to bring the different parts of the process together is one of the key aspects. Yeah, and here's just like the tech pack function. So it builds a BOM, and it can automate a lot of the tech pack function. And with some of the customers and clients, it's built into their PLM system. So the systems talk to each other. So essentially, the goal here is that no more manually data entering lots of information into the BOM. That as a designer, you just create, you add your materials, you add your colors, and then the BOM's automatically pushed over to PLM and generated.
Yeah, this is a fantastic tool because again, it's a lot of work that's already been done. And normally this has to be done again because the designer kind of does this on maybe their own tech pack, and then that tech pack goes to the internal developer and they have to put it into a system. So I think just, again, alleviating and removing a kind of pain point there is giving back time to not only the designer, but also the developer to kind of use that to make the product better in other areas. So again, a really fantastic feature. And now we're actually going to move into where the shoe then went after this. So this was actually the model that I'd then taken from the system, and I was very quickly able to go into Photoshop again. So I pull it into another medium to actually start to think about, what I'm going to change in the shoe. And I think that's a nice, approach to kind of mix the different programs together. And this is just kind of what I then was pitching back to the client. And then we started to get first pullovers, which were, quite impressive for, you almost kind of the first 2 or 3 pullovers you get in sampling are not really there, but we were very, very close already. And, as Angus said, we were kind of dealing with Chinese New Year, which affected the calendar a lot. So this actually kind of filled in for that process. And as you can see, like, again, we went and did some changes in Illustrator here to kind of, just show quickly what we wanted to try and change. And then we kind of went back into the sketch phase to kind of really tighten up those lines. And this is kind of where we ended up. So this is the final product. And just some insights on the shoe. It's like, actually, this is not released yet. So this is a kind of like first exclusive look at this new product. I'd like to thank Lanvin, particularly, as well as Revobit, and for allowing us the opportunity to show this shoe prior to launch, which is actually beginning of next year. but they were very, very excited because the process is so interesting and so new for this industry. So, you know, as you can see as well here, these actual colors were done using an AI function, and Angus is going to share that in a live demo shortly. But this is another fantastic tool where you can input a color palette, and you can actually tell it how many colors you want to take, whether it's 3, 4, 5, etc. And then you can actually dial in the amount of color you want to use. So maybe obviously your white is the biggest amount here, but you use that on a scale and you drag that over. And then this will generate 40 different variations using all the different panels. So it's, again, just a brilliant tool to kind of sometimes find results that we wouldn't normally find if we were doing it the more manual route in, say, for example, Illustrator. So yeah, a wonderful tool to kind of, again, give us some time back to apply that time into areas that were about, you know, making the product even better. So yeah.
And I think the key thing about this was that it's not about replacing a process. It's about fusing two worlds together. So we have the digital world and the physical world. I mean, you know, to make world-class product, you know, that's what we feel was the best process. That you start some of your work in digital, move to physical, you move back into digital, and it's this combination of them playing together that I think is leveraging the, you know, the best outcomes here.
Yeah, and this is what we can actually share now, which is the physical. I mean, my light is a little strong, but as you can see, we kind of have all those details there, especially like when you look super close with the textures, what we did on the outsole, the TPU paneling, how you can get the transparency. But these all really, really help the process, especially, you know, removing materials and playing with those textures. And for example, the most important material on here is this one here, this white one. This is developed by a Japanese company. It's a triaxle material used in the space industry. And what Revit did was they were actually able to scan this material directly, and so we were getting the real material on the 3D model, which again is not it's not about using a substitute. This is using the real thing. So yeah, we were very, very happy with the outcome, because, you know, this was a shoe that was, you know, end to end was kind of less than 12 months, which is pretty kind of unusual for our industry, as we know from some of the bigger brands we've worked for. But yeah, again, it's all about collaboration. It wasn't just done by one or two people. This was done by a multitude of people. So again, it's the team sport here. So.
And I think the interesting one, this, like for me, this was the interesting one, was that it was like 11, 12 months from, you know, almost ready to launch. I mean, I think it's due to be launched shortly. You know, we've actually since done, me and Richard did another project together where I was actually acting as a developer, and Richard was, well, we had three of us. We had, I think, we're all in 3 different countries. And we did a new running shoe for a new brand, a startup brand. So it's not launched, so we can't show anything. But we got the brief, I think, in second week of April. Contract signed, and then we delivered within 5 weeks a shoe that was ready to go to production for running. I mean, obviously, we did that through a mixture of our experience as like in the industry. So we took a lot of shortcuts because we were like, we know what works and what doesn't work from a manufacturing perspective, but there was no way we could do that without a tool like this. And he's kind of, we would love to be able to show you how that worked, but maybe next year we can show you that shoe. Like anything from your side, Richard, on that? Or?
Yeah, no, you're right. It was an incredibly quick process, but again, we were able to get utilized not only the tools, but, you know, our experience to kind of build this product. And I think, you know, the plan was from them was to then send the model directly to the factory, and they were going to make the samples based off the model. All of the heights, proportioning was correct. And we even give them all the midsole material, compounds and things like that. So yeah, that one, we are still waiting to find out the result of that one, but it's that was a very, very interesting project, and it kind of, again, was a bit of a case study for us that it could be done in that period of time.
I mean, the thing that is important to note, like what happened there, the collaboration tools we used the platform. We had the design lead from Richard. I was acting like a headquarter kind of technical expert. We had the factory developer. We had the pattern engineer. We had the mold engineer. We even had a sports testing person, all involved in the platform, utilizing it, communicating in 3D, like you would on a Google Doc. And that was kind of what enabled us to do that, because it would be impossible without it. Maybe I can jump in and share the platform so you can have a quick look of some of the things. How are we doing for time? Are we all right?
Yeah, we've got a few minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is the platform. It's in Chrome. So as I said, you don't need a fancy computer as long as you've got a basic graphics card. That's why it's easy for like the factories to get access. They don't need specialist hardware. You know, what I will do is actually, I mean, I can give some examples of, you know, some of the material aspects. Yeah, you can see I'm not a designer with my material and color choice, so don't be critical out there. Anyone that's criticizing the design choices here.
The one thing you need to know about Angus is that he always wanted to be a designer, but unfortunately, had to become a developer.
Yeah, I'm a failed designer. Exactly. Unfortunately can't draw. This is why I like tools like this. Yeah, so you know, just some of the things that we've got like some fast color change. This is where I'm going to blow your mind with my color skills, and let's put a bit of pink in there as well. So you know, it's more about the ability to just quickly create things instantly. I deliberately chose this selection to make Richard wince, but you know, rather than look at my expertise, here's an example where we pull in a WGSN. This is just the key colors. Actually, it's an older file, but it's their key colors for one of their seasons. We have an AI that can extract colors from that image. So I can also like delete the ones I don't want. And then the AI is going to like color up the model. Maybe Ricky, you can explain while we wait for it to load.
Well, actually, there was a really good question that came up in the chat, and I'm going to throw it out here now.
Yeah.
I believe we talked about this in the previous, in a few months ago, that integrating Gravity Sketch into the modeling process. Yeah.
So I mean, I think the fact that the software can support any FBX or USD imports, also OBJ. So yeah, I mean, you can export, as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure you can export an FBX from Gravity Sketch or various other software. So in terms of the input into this, it could be any CAD software. So as long as you can export, in the right format. And, we often use Rhino. We use Rhino as a company because it's sort of industry standard and is very powerful, not necessarily easy to use, but very powerful. But yeah, Gravity Sketch, Blender, I believe you could use. So, this is just, does that answer, hopefully?
Yep, that was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you can see these beautiful colors, but maybe Richard, you can give you were using this for Lanvin, yeah?
Yeah, so actually for the second season of Colors, I used the AI tool. And, it was like coming up with a story for the colors and then plugging it in and, then getting kind of 40 different variants with those colors. And, of course, maybe like half of it doesn't work, but there's some things in there that you find that are, wow, like I didn't expect that. And I didn't even know that, those two combinations would work together. So it's, it really is like a great tool to kind of, speed up the process, understand a little bit more about the product you've designed as well, because some things, sometimes you see something you don't normally expect. Obviously this shoe as well was the design of it, was the intent was to kind of make sure that it had plenty of blocking opportunities with different layers of material, textures, and I think and this is a great tool as well that he's showing now, which is, for me as a designer in footwear, understanding textures and applying textures to models is so difficult without actually really seeing it because of the scaling and things like that. I'm sure a lot of you out there will also agree. And this was really a game changer for me because I got to see it one-to-one. So I saw exactly, what it looks like. Is it right or not? No, flick to the next one. So, instead of going through the traditional big rubber, texture book, which, not everybody has to hand. This is a brilliant way of kind of showing that.
Yeah. I'm trying to think what else we've got. We've got the collaboration tools as well here. So I think I can just quickly show that, and then we can probably take questions. Or
yeah, we're pretty close. Yeah, 2 minutes.
So just saving here. Okay, so we have like this is the thing, the 3D platform. This is, I think, for me, from a development point of view, this is the thing I love the most because it allows me to provide feedback, whether it's technical feedback, manufacturing feedback, performance feedback. So, I can start highlighting areas like make a comment here and be like, make some kind of, I'll change the color here and make a comment here and just be like, at the factory at Francis here, please do the pull test on this eyelet. Yep. So it becomes like a tool just to communicate some of your manufacturing feedback. You also have the ability to, and I'm not going to claim I'm able to use this tool because it's more of a design tool. I think any of you that are familiar with the main curve creation tools, you'll be familiar with this. Yeah, you can see I'm useless at this thing. Don't laugh, but you can mark it up. You can also, just scribble as well, so you can make some nice mess here as well. But I think what we found, particularly in the latest project that we did, that this is how we spent a lot of time in this view, going back and forward, asking questions, working out what is the priority things that we need to fix, and it made a big difference to the overall speed of the process.
Yeah.
I
think that's it.
Yeah. So hopefully that was interesting to everyone.
Hey, yeah, I think it was really interesting. Like in the chat, I can see take my money. People would like give some money.
Okay.
So my first question is, there were so many questions in the chat regarding what is this software, and I think it's because, and it was also for me, like I'm in the industry, and I didn't know about it before then. That's right. So why?
So we've been dark a little.
Yeah.
To be honest, we've been dark a little bit. One of the just more strategical perspective, because we wanted to make sure the product was ready. So Richard was brought on as like an expert in the industry to help us refine the product and make sure it was ready. We've been working with some major brands, and we've actually got some contracts with some major brands. One UK-based brand and one in Switzerland. So we've been working with, and what we were actually working on a lot of to leverage the full benefit of the platform. There's a lot of work to connect to your other systems. So connecting to your PLM system, whether that's Centric or whatever else, because the goal is actually to automate a lot of the other stuff. So I was a developer, and I used to get the stack of color drawings in paper printed out, and I had to manually type into the BOM all the colors. It would take you hours and hours, right before Christmas. So a lot of the work we're doing is automating a lot of this back and forward discussions. So the truth was, from a Revelbit standpoint, we actually didn't want to shout too loudly at the time, because we just wanted to prioritize a couple of key first stage customers. And then, you know, now we're confident about, we've got good feedback, and we're confident about bringing it out. And we've thanks to Gravity Sketch for, you know, giving us this platform to try and share with the community. So hopefully we'll see a lot.
100%. I think everyone is mind blown, like really mind blown. I haven't seen like so many comments about that, like in the whole festival. And Richard, that shoe was like so beautiful. So yeah, thanks for sharing that before it's even launched.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the great comments. Yeah, appreciate it.
All right, I have some
very
questions.
kind as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, I have some comments from the audience, and then I will bring our Q&A guest, because I'm sure he's gonna have so many questions for you guys. Yeah, I mean, this one has been answered. Can you import models without UVs and get them done automatically in Revolvit?
Not just now. So we provide a service to our customers where we, so to be honest, one of the challenges of the industry, a lot of the mold shop CAD, which is for the bottom unit, is created by the mold shops in Rhino, and it's created to open a mold. It's not created for rendering. So if you just pull that CAD from the mold shop into a rendering software, you're going to have a lot of UV problems. And I think that's common for any software that's using UV. We provide a service. So what we do is with the brand, will send us the CAD. Our team of experts will clean up the CAD as a service to make sure that it's all the UV and the normals are matching. If you can do it yourself, great. But right now in the platform, it's not. It doesn't have the ability to modify the UV. You have to do that before you upload.
Okay. There's like still money like symbols coming through.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to welcome Joey Camis onto the stage to ask a few questions.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, Joe.
Hi, great.
First of all, really interesting talk, and it was cool that I kind of shared similar thoughts as a lot of the comments of like haven't seen something like that before, and interesting ways of interacting with other designers, but also developers in the factory. I have several questions, some like broad and some more specific, but I was curious of like how you see this impacting, I guess, the value of what something like this can bring in saving time and travel and interaction with factory versus actually, you know, going to the factory and spending the time there. And you talked about how much you get done in that short amount of time at the factory. I asked that from someone who, because of so many different weird things in the world and COVID and shutdowns and stuff, I really haven't had much experience going to a factory, but I've had other virtual ways to figure it out. So I guess, where do you see the balance of value of going to the factory and not because of these new tools?
So I spent 8 years of my life in China for a brand or working in Adidas. I worked in manufacturing in the development center. So I would encourage everyone who works in the industry to get their hands on product, walk the lines. Don't just go over to the factory and sit in the nice office upstairs with Starbucks. Get down to the production line and walk the lines and see your product getting made. So I think you should never remove that part from the process. I do think, though, that we were very guilty and lazy of using that 2 weeks to try to squeeze all the work into that 2 weeks. And we didn't do enough up front. And I think the big benefit here is like do more up front. And then when you get to Asia, don't just sit in the office. Okay, refine your product, but spend more time visiting suppliers, visiting mold shops, really learning about the product. So I don't think of course it can replace some Asia travel, but I don't think, I think phygital is the way forward. This fusion of physical samples and digital product. That's what's going to create the best. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I also second that as well, because like my initial experience was one of my first jobs was kind of a hybrid role between development and design at Puma, and just learning and understanding like LAS development, mold development, material executions, like everything, pattern engineering. These are the fundamentals, and I think what this tool allows you to do is actually again go back and educate on that side of things as well. And our process with the project we showed, we were able to take that time that we would have lost on various sample rounds and all the other kind of admin stuff. We were able to take that and focus on what is the best aglet detail, what is the best logo execution for the tongue, and so that we make sure that this product is going to be loved and cherished by the consumer. And I think there's a lot of product out there right now, more than there's ever been, whether it's been brands or stuff from the big main big main sports brands. So I think it's really important to do like a bit less, but really, really good. Yeah, that's my point.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, because I also had a similar experience on my project with Gravity Sketch, where the first sample was so close to how I envisioned it, and there wasn't that like. Oftentimes when you get that first pull over something, it's like you're almost like scared at how off things look or proportionally things are bad. And you mentioned how like not even just taking a couple months off, but like multiple months off of time of getting this to production. And like when this stuff, when all these like different 3D tools can speed up the process of brief to market. And I guess I was just curious of like how you like how that's going to impact the whole like I guess industry. If once as an independent, that might make sense for a client, like, oh, I can get this done faster for you and for your shorter timeline. But once it adapts to like a bigger scale, like will that eventually just be like spewing out so much product because they can? And where do you think the balance of that will like happen? Because obviously like when things can come up faster and hit trends faster and not have to wait longer, I can imagine people would try to jump on stuff faster like that.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting comment actually. Yeah, I think what I would hope is exactly what I said in the last question, which is that those companies would invest that time back into the smaller range and do it really, really well, rather than making double the amount of products, and also like allowing the teams as well to actually take time off and have get inspiration. Because I think the big part of my experience was there was really never a downtime. It was like you were constantly like moving on to the next thing, moving on to the next season. So I think it also allows for kind of progression seasonally as well, so you can actually be a little bit further out on more advanced products as well, and you can get I think like even better results that way.
Yeah, and I would say one criticism of the digital creation industry is they focus too much on speed. Yes, that is one potential benefit. But if you work in a big brand, the calendar's actually fixed, the meetings are fixed. So you actually want to use the time to make better product, whether that's more efficient, more sustainable, higher performance. And I think that's what we really need to be utilizing tools and bringing collaboration much closer. And I do think like speed has been oversold. We've used it in this special case to get some stuff quicker to market. But I think in most of the brands, I think the collaboration part. I actually sat in the Adidas call earlier on when they went through Gravity Sketch. And I think the key point they said was we want the developers to have the headsets. We want the factory to have the headsets. We want to bring people into the process much earlier. Because I mean, like Joy, you just said you created that first thing in Gravity Sketch and you were like, this is amazing. The last thing you want is someone like me or the factory to come along and say, we can't make that. So you want to pull those people in as early as possible. You want to give them headsets. You want to get them involved. And I think for me, it's about better, less product, better. That's it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I took from even when you again going back to when you got the pullover sample and it looked really close to like how you envisioned it because of it sped up that process, and like now you can have that extra time to get those really small details perfect and explore different materials or like aglet details or IRO details and all that kind of stuff. I have one more question and then we can probably open it up. But I guess because there's always, it seems like there's like lengths of time where like the process doesn't change too much and it's kind of like the same way of doing things, and then there's some sort of major technology that like enters in and something like what you just presented on, or Gravity Sketch, and like it really kind of disrupts the whole design process in a positive way usually. And I was curious if you guys have over your career experienced like a similar type of major innovation to the process and how that changed making footwear.
The Wacom.
Hmm.
I mean, I started 2003. People were with pencils, and nothing wrong with that. And as I think every good designer, you want to have that ability to sketch. But as a developer, when someone gave me something about no, that doesn't work, you need to change it. I think if you're working on Illustrator rather than actually a pencil drawing, you can change it quicker. So yeah, I mean, I was part of that kind of shift. I don't know, Richard, you should answer that as well.
I mean, for me, Wacom was like part of my thing. So yeah, you're a little older than me, not much older, but a little. No, to be honest, like the only one that pops to mind is Gravity Sketch, because I mean, I've used it more as an editing tool than a proper like design tool. So it's again another part of my repertoire that I use with all the other programs that all kind of come together. And it's just the simplicity of actually modeling and being able to edit. I mean, when I was like I mentioned, studying car design, Alias, just I was so bored by it. It's so mathematical and so kind of precise, and I wanted this freedom and of expression, and that's what Gravity Sketch brings. So for me, it really is Gravity Sketch right now.
And Revelbit.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, it's essentially all of the tools that are starting to just really consider the design process, right? Like, like so far we've been kind of dragging some of the technologies into our practice, but now we're really like trying to understand what do we really need, and then those tools really serving us. So yeah, definitely. And you keep mentioning communication and collaboration, Angus, because that's kind of like it's the most essential thing. Any tool needs to be focused on that, because that's ultimately what we do 90% of our day, right? Like trying to communicate these ideas that we have in our head to somebody else, so that eventually those things that we envision end up coming to life. All right. Well, thank you so much for this presentation. I think you blew everyone's minds, like really blew them. So yeah, thank you so much for being at Around this year, for showing us that shoe that has yet to be launched. And so thank you, Richard, thank you, Angus, and thank you, Joey, for joining us for the Q&A.